former director of cybersecurity policy for the Department of Defense. So you were actually one of the people that assessed this intelligence community assessment from the side of DoD, as I understand it, that recently we've been hearing about, that the Tulsi Gabbard, the Director of National Intelligence, publicized recently.
Yeah, I think it's page 74, 75 of my first book, The Nation Will Follow. 2 days after the election in 2016, I was called up on the NSA phone. The person said I had to be on the intelligence community assessment that was assembling to finalize the Russia narrative, because we were going to prove that Trump was a Russian asset and we were going to delay or block the inauguration of Donald J. Trump for the first term. I just couldn't believe it.
This is what you were told?
This is what I was told on the phone. So this was a deep state coup from the beginning, that it actually started in early 2016. We went through the process in November, December. The final product came out in the first few days of January 2017. But bottom line, the supposed top secret review, there was nothing there to show that Russia was trying to manipulate the campaign or the outcome of the election in the favor of Donald J. Trump, that the Trump campaign was somehow colluding with Russia. There was no evidence of anything. So when the document, the Intel Community Assessment, came back to the Department of Defense, because that's what happens in these reviews, the team members, the document, the final end product goes back to all the departments and agencies for review and finalization and approval. When it came back, my recommendation was non-concur. There was no evidence to support any of these assertions. And I was told, John, stand down. No, you don't need to complete the staffing. The secretary, which is Ash Carter, who's dead now, had already signed off because Comey and Brennan were personally hands on keyboard writing this assessment. You never have a director of CIA or director of FBI personally writing the Intel Community Assessment. That was very brief.
It sounds, even with everything we know today, it sounds kind of nuts.
It was absolutely nuts. It was absolutely nuts. And it was some of the most outrageous things I'd ever said or heard in government service, uniformed or civilian. This was insanity. The Voice, on the other hand, I know exactly who it was, and I put their name to the Durham investigation. John, we're going to finalize the Russian narrative, prove Donald J. Trump is a Russian asset, and delay or block the inauguration. It's never been done before in American history. This is insane. But it shows what was going on. And we were starting in early 2016. We were being fed information in interagency meetings from New York, from the Director of Counterintelligence, who was Charles McGonigal, who's now in prison, who was being paid by the Russians to spread the rumor inside the U.S. government that Trump was a Russian asset.
I just want to touch on that for 1 sec, since we're talking about it. It was Russian money that was funding the rumor that the candidate Trump was a Russian asset.
That is as insane as it sounds. Yes, the Russians were paying the FBI Director of Counterintelligence to spread the rumor it was the Russians that were interested in Trump, were trying to influence the election, and that there was a form of collusion going on between the Trump campaign and Russia. Shows the bizarre nature of the Soviet era psyche still permeating through the Russians.
It's just the reason I mention that is this is just not a very well-known piece of the story.
Charles McGonigal is in prison, and he's gotten scant attention. Now, he was charged, I gave a very long statement updated it multiple times to the Durham investigation. During the Biden years, Merrick Garland was into the quandary of they had an absolute problem with Charles McGonigal. Now, they separated that out from the John Durham investigation, said, oh, this had nothing to do with the John Durham investigation. Oh, yes, it did. It had everything to do with the John Durham investigation, because they didn't want to show that Durham was successful in anything. But Charles McGonigal really was derived out of information from various sources from the Durham investigation. He's in prison now. But there's also 5 criminal referrals out of the Durham investigation that have essentially, it's right in the document.
So before the recent South Korean election, you were there on the ground as part of an international election monitoring team. I was at a presser where gave some of your observations and conclusions and so forth. So I'll read a few of them. One of them was there were significant statistical disparities between early and same-day voting. Another one was there were concerns about the security and transparency of the electronic vote counting systems, irregularities in ballot handling and chain of custody, obstruction of lawful citizen-led monitoring efforts. A lot of things going on that were questionable. I just want to get you to speak to that.
Unfortunately, what we uncovered observing the election situation in South Korea is international election cartel that is intent on influencing elections. It's really aligned with the globalists, but it's also really with China. This is also a key part of the international election cartel, because China has learned, hey, they can influence the election outcomes. But I think some of it, I think we have to go back to the Obama days, where I think it just came out, the incredible amount of money that was spent by Obama through the CIA to influence elections in Israel. Okay, but now we've also uncovered the U.S. aid contribution to influencing elections in Brazil, where a populist, Bolsonaro, lost an election, is now incarcerated by the regime in Brazil, who's aligned with China. But what happened in South Korea, absolutely no question about it. This was an international election cartel that influenced the South Korean election. The numbers just mathematically made no sense. There was Chinese operators at the polling stations. You have this thing called the National Election Commission, which is an unassailable body. It's unauditable, uninvestigatable by the South Korean government, and also a very, very problematic situation is it has members of the South Korean Supreme Court on the board of the National Election Commission. A clear failure to separate powers between parts of the South Korean government. So that was not a clean event that occurred on June 3rd in South Korea, and it's getting scant attention and notice. But there's also this mysterious body called AWEB inside of South Korea, the Association of World Election Bodies, which has the U.S. aid logo all over their website. So fortunately, we've shut down USAID. We've clawed back a lot of money. But unfortunately, it was too late to help the situation in South Korea. Very likely, U.S. aid money went toward influencing the outcome of the election in South Korea. But I would say South Korea, our best friend and ally, better than even our Five Eyes partners, is in a state of crisis right now because of the international election cartel that influenced that election.
Is this something you think the U.S. should be involved in? I mean, there's this, as you know, there's a lot less of an appetite for intervening in processes, whether it's certainly in military, but also in government processes in other countries.
Well, I'm a firm believer in America first and the Make America Great agenda, okay? Part of this means no new wars, no endless wars, and an avoiding of foreign entanglements. Totally support that. However, we can't just drop a hermetically sealed dome over America and just ignore that there's a rest of the world out there. We do have interests. We do have initiatives we should be promoting. We do have partners out there, trusted partners that we should be coming to the aid to, especially when they are under duress from malign foreign influence operations led by China. This was a Chinese operation. South Korea is our best friend. Are we going to just watch our best friend get mugged, robbed, and brutalized and do nothing? Public statements from the president or other members of the administration are immensely powerful in just acknowledging the situation. It doesn't mean we have to deploy resources, programs, units, personnel. One thing that is extremely appreciated and has immense impact is just the words of the president or the words of a senior official from the administration showing concern. That has huge. That's step one, and that's frankly 70% of the battle. If the South Korean Democrats knew they were under close scrutiny from this administration, things would be very different in South Korea right now. That's what's needed, is just a statement of interest.
Interesting. So there's still a place for U.S. soft power.
Absolutely, absolutely. We need to spend far more time and energy on soft power. And again, the essence of soft power is just saying something. That's the essence of soft power. When bad people know that they're being watched, they behave very differently. And that's when you say make a statement about bad behavior, bad activity, it's amazing what happens.
John, this has been an absolutely fascinating conversation for me. A final thought as we finish up?
Well, thank you, Jan. I just think we need to understand what's going on around us, have situational awareness, and to realize there is a world on fire. It is intentional. These things we're seeing, even stateside, what's going on in America, this is not accidental. This is not coincidental. Organized groups breaking windows didn't come out of thin air. No, they expect to get paid and organized and directed, and that's what's going on. And so I think we need to be aware of that, and we need America is an incredible, precious experience and experiment in human history, a constitutional republic. Never been one like it, never will be again if those forces intent on throwing it into the trash can are successful. So I think it's worth fighting for and worth defending, and that's what we should do.
Well, John Mills, it's such a pleasure to have had you on.
Thank you, Jan.
Thank you all for joining John Mills and me on this episode of American Thought Leaders. I'm your host, Jan Jekielek.